I'm Ellen with blackfilm.com, and I'm chatting with Love Life co-showrunners and executive producers, Rachel Williams and Bridget Bedard. How are you both doing today?
Good.
We're both good. I will say it's Rachelle, so you don't
Rachelle,
have to.
thank you. I'm
All
sorry
good.
about that. Rachelle, thank you. So I watched the first 6 episodes of season 2, and I love it. The upcoming season focuses on Michael Watson, played by William Jackson Harper, who's also an EP. And what I enjoyed most about it was seeing a heartfelt male perspective in a romantic comedy, specifically a Black male perspective. I didn't feel like I was watching a TV show, more like an authentic human experience. So thank you for that. With that said, how did the creation, the writing and structure of Michael Watson's story take place? And Bridget, we can start with you.
Yeah, it's Marcus, just for the viewers, Marcus Watkins. But I really would say it started with just a vague idea of what we wanted to do this season, which is to have somebody in a different age bracket, different gender, different race. So we didn't even say necessarily a different race, but we just wanted to kind of just have a different experience. And so we, with William, obviously we just went and got him, and we were so thrilled and so lucky to be able to get him. And then we just kind of built the character around that person. So I would say it wasn't like we had a big plan. We knew the person was going to be leaving a long-term relationship, and it would implode, and then it would be the aftermath of that. And so that was kind of the impetus for the whole season. And beyond that, we just sort of built it piece by piece and brick by brick and tier by tier. Blood droplet by blood droplet. Yeah, I don't know if Rachelle, you want to add to that, but that was kind of it was really just starting with all the like beautiful, wonderful qualities that Will brings.
Yes, please, Rachelle.
Yeah. Well, also by casting Will and focusing on a Black man, like we already knew that like there's a responsibility to make sure that it feels authentic, for the character. And but there's all sorts of forms of authenticity, right? There isn't one way to be this person, or there isn't one way to be a single guy. But that was where the room came in, of sharing personal stories. I shared, we all spilled our guts about our love lives and the tragedies that happened and the good things that happened. And I think that's why it feels like an authentic human experience, because it really, even if it's not the exact verbatim story, it is, pulled from our emotional experiences and how they shaped us, and then we use that to shape this character.
Actually, that's a great segue to my next question. What parts of yourselves were poured into Marcus or any other characters? I'm kind of curious about that. Bridget?
It's interesting because, last season was Darby and the season is Marcus, and they're so different. And yet at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to like trying and failing. And I think, like, for me, I have like failed at so many relationships. Ultimately I don't see them as failures. I see them as kind of steps to the better thing. But I think I've poured a lot of that in. I'm a person who, I grew up in the sticks, and I basically came to New York and like was wide-eyed and kind of built an entirely different life for myself that I didn't really envision, and no one really supported. And I kind of scratched and clawed my way to that life. And I think I put a lot of that into Marcus in terms of, you coming from a place like the Midwest, and then kind of being wide-eyed, and then kind of growing and learning and becoming a bit more jaded. I feel like that's something that I really put into the show from myself. A lot of other things were from other writers, many personal stories. I don't know that there's one I can point to from my own life at the moment, but I think every single episode stemmed from someone in the room saying like, oh, there was this time I did this thing, or this happened to me, or a relationship that people had in the relationships that people had in the room.
Mm-hmm. Rachelle, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, we definitely like pieces of our personality and the characters are really sparked to Mia, as we, because she was a completely new character that originally, we weren't sure what it would be, or what, where this would go. And also too with Marcus, in terms of like being Black in a white workspace, and just like, you know, the other minorities in the room sharing their some of their horror stories, not this room, not this experience. That was a fun thing too. Just like, I feel like Bridget is saying, like, are we this? Is this us? I'm like, no, no, no. This is another job. This is our last job, where it was like, you know, but
I'm sure there are times that there are just things that we're unaware we're
yeah.
doing. So, but thank you
But
for
I
saying, yeah.
no, but I think too, like, I mean, there's comedy in that though. Like, you know, I found myself towards the end, like, enjoying writing for Josh, which is Marcus's boss, you know, and just kind of like showing just basically what I love so much about the show is just showing how different people move throughout the world, you know, and Darby can move this way and Marcus kind of has to move this way. And what's the journey of like, I don't want to have to follow these rules anymore. I don't want to have to be like exactly like this anymore. And then let that character break out of those things. And I think Mia is someone that kind of taps Marcus on the shoulder, you know. And I think it's just that sometimes you just need a little nudge. And I think then from there you get to see this incredible journey with Marcus.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, watching Marcus's story, there were so many parts and bits of it that I identified with, even though it's a man playing this role emotionally and mentally. There were so many pieces. And I mean, Mia's character is so incredibly strong. And to your point, Rachelle, she serves as this anchor throughout. I mean, I only got to 6 episodes, but I can't wait to see everything else. I'm so excited. But there were so many relatable components from every character, really. Marcus's arc is a huge part of what makes this season special, in my humble opinion. Rachelle, can you talk a bit about the building process and the decisions made for that specific direction for Marcus?
Yes, I mean, every show, like, you know, the character has to change. They have to start somewhere and have to end up somewhere new, but kind of this, you know, it's just that's just what has to happen in any TV show. And I think I don't want to say like the odyssey, but it kind of is the odyssey. Like, life is an odyssey, you know, just like, okay, I'm here, here's my conflict. How will I weather this storm to come out the other side a healthier, better person? And also, but I'll throw some of this question to Bridget, who is amazing with story and amazing with like crafting, you know, because you know, I definitely know I would spit out like a lot of kind of like heady ideas or feelings. And Bridget's like, well, yeah, that's not quite a story though, but it's a great feeling, you know? So just like, I learned a lot from like, okay, now it needs, you know, and to shape into a story, and Bridget would help us find those blocks, like, okay, so he's had this emotional arc here, it turns into this emotional arc in this story. And just Bridget just kind of just like leveled up with every episode of like, you know, making sure that that arc was there. Otherwise, it would just be a bunch of speeches on my end. Like,
Well, thank you for saying that, Rachelle. I will say though, even with building, I just have more years, you know, at this than Rachelle, that's all. But I do think like all stories come from feeling, and you know, she can attest. I'm always like, but what's the feeling in the scene? So like, you know, she is saying like she was pitching feelings, but like we can't build scenes without feeling. And so I do think I have more experience with the structure. But Rochelle would make everything much more funny than anything I would ever write. But I'm like, can you just fix this and make it funny? But as far as the art goes, I think, you know, one of the things that we're really proud of in the show is not having like a fake ending or a false ending to a life story, because that's just not real. But at the same time, it's like a really fine line of maintaining hope and kind of like a positive outlook for love. And so, you know, we always know, however it ends, we want our character to find what they need and find some kind of happiness, however flawed, however much work there is left to do. And so just kind of backfilling from that, like it really does become just a game in the room that's really pretty fun. Like, well, if this is where he ends, where does he start? And, you know, kind of like building all of that. So yeah, that's kind of my long answer.
No, that was perfect. I appreciate that it's not wrapped up. And again, I haven't gotten to the end, but I appreciate that it's not wrapped up in this pretty bow. Like, it's relatable, and everything isn't a cookie cutter journey. And speaking of journey, why did you decide to not just focus on romantic relationships, but incorporate like all of Marcus's like life relationships, Bridget?
We did the same thing in season 1, and I think we were able to even do it in a fuller, fuller. What's the right word? I don't a more full way in season 2. I just think that our love lives are informed by the rest of our lives and vice versa. I just think there's a constant symbiotic relationship. So there is no just like, this is my love life over here. It's like my family informed that, and that informs how I relate to my family and my friends. And we learn from our friends and we're inspired by them. And we have kind of like cautionary tales from our friends. And it's all such a kind of a heady mix that makes a person. And so I think even though it is love life and ultimately that's the spine of the show, we really aim to kind of paint a whole picture of a person more than just like their love life.
Yeah, and as a viewer watching it, it's a lot more fulfilling to see that sort of vantage point. And so why did you decide to make this an anthology series, Rachelle?
Well, I came in and it was already an anthology series, so I was like, that's the job. No, but I think, yeah, I know, to speak on Sam's behalf, like it was always meant to be a different character study, like every season, and Darby's one example, and then there's, and then it's like, but New York is so full of interesting people. It's like, okay, well now we can go this direction, and now, and then calibrating to room to make sure the writer's room that they can speak to this new person's experience, So this was Marcus, even though he wasn't even named Marcus yet, was this character like before, the room started. It's okay, well, we're going to focus on this guy. Let's build, this guy. And I think that's what keeps it, from becoming stagnant, because like there are shows about love that go on for several seasons, but we're not built that way as a society anymore. Like we do want new characters. We do want to see different representation. So really, even though I love Darby and I love season 1 to death, but it doesn't feel as sustainable because there's just so many more people out there.
And I also think because we're so intensely focused on our A story, our one character, I can't imagine having like 5 seasons of Marcus or 5 seasons of Darby, because we go so in depth every episode that it kind of is a nice kind of puzzle that by the end adds up to a full meal. And I don't think you need another meal of that same meal. So that's kind of the idea.
Good point. And what was it like working with this group of actors, Bridget?
These actors are phenomenal. I have to say they everything we wrote, they just made it sound better. They're so good. And they brought so much dimension and subtlety and humor. And when people watch the show, and I hope people watch the show, there's stuff in there that the actors just ad-libbed on the day that was just too funny to not put in. And so it's kind of it's a blend. I mean, it's fairly strongly scripted, but there's also moments of just pure magic that the actors brought. And they were all so, just like the team was, their attitude was just like so collaborative and so positive and so much fun. They were they were a dream. That's like, I literally can say nothing. I can't say enough, I guess, is the answer.
Great. Yeah, this came across as very honest storytelling. I think that's why I connected to it so much. Just to wind down, what do you want people to know and expect from season 2? Rachelle?
Oh man, I got the hard one. No, no, I think they should know that these characters, like, I don't know, I think they can know that they can find themselves in these characters and expect surprises. I know that sounds obvious, but really, like, you really do think it's going one way. And, and I think there's some, since you've seen the first 6, there's some interesting twists and turns and interesting conversations.
What about you, Bridget?
I think people should expect, I think people will love it. I hope they love it. I think by the time the viewer gets to the end, my hope is that it's so satisfying and that people feel kind of inspired and, feel good about their own lives and their own love lives.
Indeed. And it has such a unique rollout. First 3 episodes will debut on Thursday, October 28th, the next 3 episodes on November 4th, and then it concludes with 4 episodes on November 11th. I feel like you're giving us enough to hook us in, but not too much so quickly. So that's kind of cool. Thank you so much.